Okay, just for my own brain, could you speak into the microphone one more time?
Once more for Aaron's brain. This is me speaking into my mic.
It works, bitches. We back.
Oh, God.
We're here.
Are you recording?
Yeah. Because I was like, I don't want to touch it. Like, I got it to work. I don't want to fuck this up.
Love that.
Yep. We're so cool. Hi, everyone.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to the fic list.
It is so strange. We are once again in the fic list studios. I am across the table from Aaron. It's been a very long time.
It's been, how long has it been since March 2020? Well, technically it was December 2019 for us.
True, yeah, because we recorded forever.
Yeah, and then Yes. In terms of in-person.
I was going to
What a solid start we're getting off to, friends.
I got confused in that.
Yeah, so December 2019 would have been our last in-person recording session, and then we recorded all last season.
And we were on schedule, so
yeah.
The holidays episode came out during the holidays.
Yeah, I mean, we recorded it like a week before it aired, but
you know,
we went from one extreme to another. But then, yeah, and then we recorded all of last season from our homes, and now we are once again at my dining room table where everything began, although those many years ago now.
Many years ago.
Yeah. I have fed Alan.
She has.
Tradition is restored.
Yeah. My first intake of vegetables in over a year. We love that.
Wow. Love that for us. I picked up my CSA share today because I've gone full cottagecore hippie. And I got to, I went and picked up some peppers and some onions and whatever and made a little dinner. So here we are. And we don't know how to start a podcast anymore. We're going to have to relearn this whole process.
But you know what? I think everyone's used to that.
Yeah. I mean, we've never known what we were
doing.
It's
par for the course.
Yeah, correct.
You know what's crazy?
What?
Season 3.
Season 3!
This is 3 seasons in?
Woohoo!
That's bonkers.
It is. It's bonkers.
Wow.
I don't fully understand how we're still here. I'm grateful for it. I know other people have been asking me when we were going to start season 3. Hi, Evelyn. And we just keep being like, soon, we're recording soon. And then we're going to record last weekend. And then we didn't. And now here we are.
And then after me forgetting my freaking microphone cable and us trying to set up 2 microphones on one GarageBand track.
Several minutes of that, actually.
We are here.
Uh-huh.
And we are queer. And we're going to tell you about some fan fiction.
Wow! Welcome back to the fic list, everybody. Yep.
And so in maintaining our structure that we implemented last season, we're doing one tag. Mm-hmm. And it's a general tag. Mm-hmm. What is that tag, Aaron?
So before we do that, maybe we should explain to any new listeners what the fuck this is.
New listeners? What is that?
We might have acquired one new listener. Who knows? So the fic list is a podcast where me and Alan send each other fan fictions to read, review, and recap. And we do so in the spirit of authenticity and sincere appreciation for the thing. Like, the goal here is not to, like, shit on anybody. Like, all those other podcasts that are like, meh, fan fiction, it's so weird. Why would anyone... No, we love fan fiction unapologetically, have forever. And we're here to, like, have a good time. And, like, think critically about fan fiction. We don't necessarily just sit here and, like, we don't go the other direction. We try to think critically about it and talk about what makes it good and what makes a really fantastic fiction, like, so good. And we end up usually talking about queer media all the time. And we send each other fan fictions to read. So I sent Alan a story to read, and he sent me a story to read. And then we talk about them all. We are also finally trying to incorporate fan recommendations into our show with some semblance of regularity, so you'll hear more of those later. So yeah, that's the fic list in a nutshell. Did I miss anything?
I'm Alan.
Oh yeah, I'm Aaron. That's me. Yep. Mm-hmm.
No, that was great. That was very
Stellar.
Succinct. I loved it.
Wonderful. Well, in that case, the tag that we chose to discuss for today, and therefore chose fanfictions with this tag, is Found Family.
Aww.
Would you like to explain why, Elon?
Because it's Pride Month, bitches.
It's Pride! Fuck yeah! We always go from Christmas to Pride. That's the deal.
That is and then we hibernate during.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I do anyway. Like, that's real. Yeah. Happy Pride, everybody.
Yes.
God, I hope we actually get, like, real outside of house Pride this year.
If you're able to, get vaccinated, y'all.
Yeah, seriously, please get vaccinated. The reason that we can come to you safely from from across my dining room table is that we are both vaccinated. I am from part of the Pfizer family. And
Moderna gang over here.
Yeah, he got Dolly Parton directly like pumped into his bloodstream.
Yeah, she came over and she was very nice about it.
Yeah, and she was like, "I'm here to stab you," and we were like, "Wow, cool." I did, Dr. Fauci came over and gave me mine, so it worked out. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, get vaccinated. That's why we can do this now, because we're both vaccinated. So you should too if you're able to. We love vaccines. We like science. We also like masks.
We like living.
We really do. What a year it has been. Trust science.
True.
What a good podcast. This has been great. Goodbye.
Yeah, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, we're not doing this anymore.
I hope you've all learned something.
Yeah. Anyway, so Pride, found family. We were gonna do found family for Pride this time last year, and then we decided it was too hard.
Oh, that's right. I forgot all about that. If I remember correctly, I was like, Aaron, it's too hard to find something.
Yep.
And then you very kindly said, well, we'll just do Pride.
Yep. And I was like, well, just whatever, it'll be fine. And then this year we were like, well, we can't do Pride.
As much as we'd like to just be able to do it again.
We gotta pick some queer tags that aren't Pride.
Right.
And so that's what we did. And it worked out.
Yeah. And families, I feel, is just so inherently queer. Like there's something about having to, because not everyone has families that are as understanding or accepting of your identity, and so you have to go out and form bonds with other people, and you have your own little family that way.
Yeah, there is nothing more queer than finding people who are like you, even before you realize that you're queer. We do this. I don't know about you, but like if I look back at my high school friends, I'm like, huh, we all came out of the closet eventually. We didn't know at the time, but even if like you are one of the queer folks who has a like family who respects and like has not disowned you or anything like that, there's something incredibly powerful about finding people who actually understand what you go through as a queer person, because it can be a very isolating experience. Especially if you don't fit into other molds, like if you're somebody who is not sort of the like cis white queer that like experiences attraction a very like in a like a quote unquote normal, I say as an asexual person, who's not if you don't fit that sort of like the other privilege boxes, it is so important to like find your people who will uplift and support you, and they actually get what it's like to an extent to like live your life.
Agreed.
Yeah. So found family.
Found family.
Queer magic. Love it.
I love that.
So do you want to start or do you want me to start?
You can start talking about what I sent you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great.
So Alan sent me a good old Harry Potter fan fiction.
I don't want to hear it.
I mean, after how many seasons have I been bashing you over the head with the magicians now? It pretty much happened immediately after we started this podcast. I fell into my magician's hole. So I'm really not allowed to sassafras you about Harry Potter, but I'm going to anyway. So the fic you sent me is called I Could Be Wrong, I Could Be Ready by Harry Romper.
Great name.
Yep, it is very silly. I just imagined Harry in like the male romper.
Yeah.
Yep. Which I think would piss off J.K. Rowling, so I'm going to do it harder. This just like blanket statement anytime we do Harry Potter stuff, fuck J.K. Rowling.
Yes, absolutely.
We engage with Harry Potter fandom because it means things to us, but that does not mean that we endorse or support any of her transphobic, racist bullshit views. So if you do, this is not the podcast for you.
Yep, well said.
Yep. The summary of the fic you sent me. At first, Harry wonders if they've managed to destroy his vaults and are trying to tell him in the most oblique way possible. But when he turns the page, he realizes they found a vault in the name of Lily and James Potter. The parchment trembles a little in Harry's hand. He takes another gulp of wine. Harry Potter left Britain after the war and didn't look back. 10 years later, when Gringotts discovers a vault containing his parents' belongings, including their badly spell-damaged wedding rings, he's forced to face up to friends and family who've grown in ways he could never imagine. A wizarding London rebuilt beyond his expectations, and the anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts. And if that wasn't enough, there was the entirely unforeseen problem of Draco Malfoy. Featuring pureblood wizarding traditions, ancestral magic, open mic nights, marriage equality, a diner in Brooklyn, and the return of Fleamont Potter.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
What a summary.
It is a great summary.
It's a long summary.
It's a lot. It is a lot of summary. It is a very accurate summary.
Yeah,
that
for
is
sure.
100% the story you sent me. It's the story I read. Yep, correct. So, yeah, I mean, basically this story, so another thing that we're trying to do this year, and if I put it in audio, that we have to do it, is not go, like, word for word through the fics that we've read, because...
We're gonna try, y'all.
Ooh, sometimes these just got too long before. We did it too much. We were too detailed. But both of us are like that.
It's true.
With a capital L, capital T, and a little TM at the end. So... Basically, this fic opens with Harry living in New York.
New York.
Stop it.
Sorry.
And he's like living his life. He left London after the Battle of Hogwarts. Like a few months after, he basically was just like, I can't do this. Like, there's too many expectations on me as like the chosen one, the boy who like ended the war. It's like, I can't. I am traumatized. I gotta go. And Andromeda, like, basically connected him with these two in New York. I forget their names, and I did not write them down. I'm so sorry. And he lives in this little apartment in New York. And my next note is, it opens on him, like, coming home from work, and he opens a bottle of wine, and it's a bottle of Syrah, and he hangs out with his cat, and I was like, oh, this author is an adult. Great. Got it. I was like, if you know what Syrah is, you are at least 28. Like,
it's true. I didn't know what Syrah was.
It's a really nice red. So I was like, cool. And yeah, so he runs this like transition school program for American children, both Muggle-born and Wizard-born, who are displaying like senses of magic early, but aren't old enough to go to, I guess, Ilver and Morny. And it's basically a like the only sort of thing I can say about it, it's like co-ed kind of like, it's like if you take like Muggle-born and Wizard-born and teach them both like math, which is useful, and like really like basic gentle like magic control of their magic and that kind of thing. Right. So he does that. It's
like integration. It's like like a head start.
Yeah, it's like kindergarten.
Yeah,
basically. But so yeah, he's working on that. Whatever. He gets this letter, as the summary says, and he ends up. It's like, you have to come back to London, and it's this like ridiculous letter. It's like 28,000 pages long, and it's like, you need all of these proof of whatever, and he's like, I'm the fucking chosen one, bitch. Like, why do I need to bring why do I need to bring whatever? Oh, fucking, you know, Gringotts, of course they were. And he has this moment where he gets to be like, I did destroy the bank one time with the dragon.
Yeah, they haven't forgiven me for taking that dragon.
Which, like, fair. I try to stay away from them because I'd also be mad at me. So he was like, okay, great. This is going to be like a one-day trip. I'm going to go figure this out, and then I can get the fuck out of London and come back home and, like, back to my cat and my life. He gets to London. It is not a one-day trip.
Spoiler.
That's not how it works. So he shows up at Gringotts, and they're like, we need all of your information, please. So he gives it to him, and he's like, okay, great. You know, come back tomorrow. And he's like, what do you mean come back tomorrow? And they're like, well, you have to, like, process your application for your vault. And he's like, motherfucker. So he goes back to, like, the Leaky Cauldron, and, like, he's been seeing all these places that he had, like, been to, and, like, your boy's traumatized.
Yeah.
Like, there was something about, when he was talking in this process, he was remembering what it was like to live in London immediately after the Battle of Hogwarts, and he was like, part of the reason he left was that he had gone from war hero back to teenager, and was like, he was trying to, like, everybody was trying to get different things out of him. Like, one person wanted him to be an Auror, and then other people were like, no, you should go back to school and take your newts, and then other people were like, but you're a war hero, and, like, he didn't really know how to fit in. So he just kind of felt disconnected with his surroundings, and he continues to, like, feel that way now. He's like, oh, the Leaky Cauldron's, like, nice now. Like, what the fuck? And he's really just, like, not about it. He's like, his intention is to get in, get out, like, go. And he has really lost contact with everybody too. Like it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if I said this. It's been 10 years. Guys. We're a decade out. And he just like, he doesn't tell anyone he's coming because your boy's traumatized and he's been avoiding people and he's been not processing his shit. So he shows up and like, he like very briefly goes to see Teddy, and Teddy lives with Andromeda and Teddy doesn't really know him. And like, it's a bummer, but also like, that's how it goes. And I wrote, it's all the worst parts of going back to a place that's supposed to feel like home, but absolutely does not. And so everything's just sort of like, you know, stressful. And then he goes back the next day and he's like, cool, great. Give me my shit in my vault so I can leave. And they're like, actually, this vault has to be cleared of any magical curses or dark magic. It's gonna take, you have to call Bill Weasley, basically, to like come in and like make sure that there's no cursed objects in this vault. And he's like, how long is this gonna take? And they're like, at least another couple days. And he's like, motherfucker. So he cool, whatever. He sees Draco around in this process. And he's like, oh, hello. Draco is still very attractive, delightful. I'm not going to engage with anybody. I'm trying to stay away. He's like, he stops by Hermione's like briefly to be like, you had a baby. And then he like leaves. It's super awkward. And then Bill, like the next day they like go back and Bill is like, so I found all your shit. And unfortunately your parents' wedding rings are really fucked up. And there is nothing I can do to fix it because it's out of my realm of expertise, but I do have a recommendation. And Harry's like, who is your recommendation? And he knows. He knows it's coming. And Bill always goes, Draco Malfoy.
Yep.
And that's where the story begins. We're already too long.
I was thinking, I was like, wow, she really said, we're going to do short summaries, and then launches into a 10-minute summary of the first chapter.
The setup's important. And then I'll go through the rest of it. So, like, that's the setup, basically. Is like, he now has to, these two rings are, like, violently unstable. There's something wrong with them. He can't leave until it's fixed. It's going to take, like, 6 weeks. And he keeps running into, like, Draco, and he, like, goes and he hires Draco to fix them. Draco now, like, fixes, like, ancient pure blood magic shit for a living. Like, that's what he does. And he also, like, has to go and, like, he's there for a long time because it's a long process to do this. So somewhere in that process, in that 10-minute thing, they find time to hook up.
Yep.
And I didn't notice.
You didn't notice?
No. Like, it took until they were like, oh yeah, now we're regularly fucking, for me to be like, what?
Oh yeah, because it's not like, they don't show you like explicit sex scenes or anything. Yeah.
So I like missed that they had a like early on hookup. And then, and this was before he hires Draco.
Yep.
And then when he goes to hire Draco, they're like kind of awkward about it. And then they like, and he's like, okay, now I'm hiring you to do this job. And they're like, okay, cool. And then they begin like casually hooking up. And I was like, oh, I like missed a whole thing. Which like, yeah, I'm probably too asexual for that. But it was very funny. And so they, I mean, all you really need to know, it alternates between Harry and Draco's point of view from there. Mostly focusing on Draco's point of view, to be honest with you.
I agree, yeah.
And it's everything that you want in a fan fiction, in the sense that they are two very stupid, very attractive people who are very into each other, but thinks the other is not into them in the way that they are into them. And so
it's interesting because is this 3 or 4 chapters? I can't remember.
It's
4 chapters. I think the first chapter is all Harry.
Yep.
And then second and third chapters are Draco.
Yep.
And so in the first chapter, you get a sense that Harry is like really traumatized and wants nothing to do with Britain and like sees it as outdated and it's like, I'm just here to get my shit and get out.
Yep.
So, and then he starts hooking up with Draco, and that's where the chapter kind of ends, where so you have all this mentality, like, you know, the background of Harry, like, that Harry's coming with, like, you know, he doesn't want to put any roots down or anything, and then you go into Draco's point of view, and Draco is just really trying to keep things casual because he knows that Harry can't wait to get the fuck out of Dodge. And you as a reader who has been in Harry's mind, you're like, yeah, he really wants nothing to do with you. So all the mixed signals that Draco is like getting, you as a reader are getting too. You're like, wait, has he changed? I don't know. I want to go back into his mind. It was really interesting.
Yeah. I loved this fanfiction.
Yay!
Also, I thought it was delightful for many of those reasons, because so much of the like plot of it is them like trying to figure out all this like pure blood magic situation and like talking about this idea of the Ferrer.
Yeah, it was a strange word. I couldn't pronounce it.
But there's basically this like ancient magic that Draco understands because he comes from a pure blood family that where that meant something, and we know his lineage. But he has sort of like taken his pure blood heritage and translated it into like a research job and like figuring out how to basically restore and enhance this like ancient magic that was like super patriarchal, where basically you create these two like magical rings, like it's basically like a marriage ceremony, but it's magical, and that's how you create like wizard families and wizard homes specifically. So these rings that Harry has in this vault are unstable because they were bonded, and the trauma of Lily and James's death like made them unstable. Like it damaged the bond, it broke the house, like Godric's Hollow is like damaged, and Harry understands none of that. None of it. And so Draco thinks he's being a little prick, being like, you know, he doesn't care about house magic, he doesn't care about like wizard families, because that means like mean shit. And Harry just is like a dumb Muggleborn who literally like is like, it's rings, I don't understand why they're like, why it's a house, who cares, like I want to get back to my apartment, I want to get far away from this, and it doesn't carry that same like, all this is just bad memories for me. And so that tension I think is beautifully done in this fic, and that's what a lot of the plot revolves around, is that sort of like Draco fixing the thing, and then Harry also realizing that he's like completely misunderstood the importance of it.
In Harry's mind, because the most straightforward way of explaining it is that it was this like pure blood ceremony to like strengthen the magical ties between pure blood families, and so Harry's first instinct is like, fuck that, because, you know, trauma. Makes sense. But what Draco's work is focusing on is figuring out how to adapt that like ceremony to alternative families, to like Muggle-born families, or like there was one where he married like two witches.
He creates gay marriage.
Yeah, he created like a gay marriage, which wasn't like something that was easily done. So it's a really interesting plot device. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I very often get really mad about contrivances, and like when things get too in the weeds with like the process of things, I get really annoyed because I'm like, meh. But the intricacies of this really spoke to and like underscored the misunderstandings between the two characters as they were like navigating this like casual hookup relationship situation and just like talking past each other. And it totally made sense that they weren't on the same page about anything the whole time. So like they would keep going out, and Harry would keep like walking up to Draco and being like, so you're really attractive and it's time for us to go fuck now. And Draco would be like, okay. And all of Draco's friends are like, come on, like you are going to get hurt because you did the casual thing and it destroyed you, and then you had to like, you realized you're a serial monogamist, and like he's not going to give you what you need. He's clearly here to like cut and run. Also, you always had a crush on this boy and it never went well for you. So like, what are you doing? And Draco's like, I can handle myself, like this is my problem to deal with, like I'm not gonna let it get that far. It goes that far. And then finally he's like, well, he's just gonna break my heart, like it just is what it is. But Harry has this realization through the course of like watching Draco work and like trying to rebuild all of the relationships. Like he rebuilds his relationship with Hermione and Ron, and like a lot of that happens off screen, which I thought was fascinating. Like you don't actually get a lot of like, you don't get what Harry's doing because you're in Draco's head, and vice versa. But you know that Harry has reconciled with like the Weasleys and in general, because like they start to become like units in each other's lives again. Like he spends all of it, like a lot more time with Teddy and Andromeda, and starts cooking for them all the time, and anytime Draco goes over, he's the one cooking dinner or hanging out, and Teddy just talks about him incessantly. And Draco had been the one to really step up and
like the father figure,
and be a father figure for Teddy up to this point. So for Harry to like be more around, it was like Harry realizes that he just kind of like cut and ran because he was like traumatized, and he made all these assumptions about what Wizarding Society was going to be and what it was that were very fixed at the point at which he left. But coming back, he's like, they've integrated Muggle technology. Like
they've got Wii's.
They've got Wii's. Yeah, literally like a Nintendo. But they've like, you know, people are walking around Diagon Alley and Metallica t-shirts, like it's a thing. Like they've opened up the wizarding world in such a way. He was like, I was not ready to make a commitment and like accept and like put the work in. Like I just needed to go. I needed to get out of here because there were too many expectations. But he's like realizing that he his whole thing is like, well, Draco doesn't want someone so flaky as me, even if I'm working on it.
Yeah.
So they're just like, they both want the same thing, but they don't fucking talk about it.
Nope.
Because they're stupid boys, and that's what they do.
Yep.
So it does sort of culminate in Draco calling out Harry on his shit, which is good. I wrote, ooh, call him out, Draco. And then I said, so when are we going to process this trauma together, though? Because they kind of don't. The one sort of thing that I had is that the getting together seemed to come really quickly after all of this, like, I wanted a juicier, like hashing it out scene than what we got.
Yeah,
it was
I can see
good.
that.
It wasn't bad. I just kind of felt like they did the thing where, like, Harry so Draco fixes the rings up to a point is what happens in the plot. And he basically puts a magical band-aid on them and makes them stable, but doesn't fix the problem. And hands them back to Harry and is like, okay, well, I figured it out as much as I can. And Harry takes this as, like, dismissal. Yeah. Because he's like, okay, he literally created gay marriage. Any other time he's done this work, he's gone above and beyond to try to figure this out. But for me, he just gives me, like, a magic band-aid. Like, he could not be more clearly telling me to get fucked. So he doesn't even take the rings. He just, like, leaves them with Draco and, like, pieces out back to New York. And Draco, meanwhile, is like, he didn't even care. Like, This was just a job for him. Like, I did the best that I could do, and, like, clearly he just wanted to cut and run, obviously. And whatever. So he, like, holds onto the rings. And so they're idiots. And and then Draco fixes the rings completely. And it involves going back to Godric's Hollow and, like, doing this whole, like, magic thing with, like, memory and, like, basically, like, stitching the rings magic back together using the house and, like, his memories and love for Harry. And it's really dangerous. Like, he could have died doing it, and, like, the house wants to destroy him because in this thing, like, houses have, it's kind of, it made sense when I thought about the Burrow, where I was like, oh, so, like, houses in these bonds actually, like, seek to protect the family, and they change to accommodate the family. So, like, they just sort of, like, magically care for the families that they're bonded with. And so Godric's Hollow has, like, been in this decrepit state forever because it can't be fixed while the bond is still broken, or at least not magically fixed. So he magically fixes it, which is crazy. And then Harry comes back to London because Neville asks him to create a version of the integration school for Hogwarts, basically. And Harry's like, cool, great, I'll help you with that. And he decides to basically commute for a while and be both in America and in London. And then it becomes very clear that he should run the school in Scotland, and he's just going to, like, do it. And he just kind of is like, yeah, and his American friends are like, do it, we don't need you here. They're, like, good friends, but they're kind of like, they're original characters, like, we don't really know them. And they're just, like, there to be like, yes, go live your life, go make out with Draco. And Harry's like, I'm not gonna do that. And they're like, yes, you are. And so he and Neville start up this new integrative school, like, lead up school with Minerva McGonagall and Draco, who is also part of this project, but they stay away from each other because now they're, like, broken up or whatever. Yeah. I wrote, they are both morons. And then I wrote, they are both so stupid. Just talk to each other. Oh my god. Yep. And then I said, it's the I feel stupid moment, which must have been when they had that conversation after Draco, because the house starts fixing itself after Draco fixes the rings, because the magic has been restored. And also Harry gets the rings from him.
Yeah, Draco mails it to Harry.
Yeah, and goes back to Godric's Hollow, and as he's there, like, the magic has been restored, and him being there allows the house to heal.
Yeah, like, starts to rebuild itself, basically.
Yeah, so, like, the cabinets, like, literally, like, zoom back onto the cabinet thing, and, like, there are new hinges, and, like, the rooms get cleared up, the roof rebuilds itself around him, and it builds him this home that he's like, oh, this is really, like, I'm home now, and like I'm ready to be committed and, like, consistent. And,
and it builds the house that he needs too. Like, it creates, like, a room for Teddy to come and stay on weekends and stuff like that. I think that room was his nursery room. Yeah. Which, like, broke my heart, but it was really beautiful and it was really well done, because it was like, you know, I think there was a line about, you know, you would have never known that this room is a nursery, but it's the same color as Teddy's room at Andromeda's. And I was like, oh,
Stop it. It was really good. So they have their confrontation at Godric's Hollow. Mm-hmm. And Harry's like, I want to be with you. Obviously, I was terrible and like very commitment, whatever. And Draco's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I had to like put my magic into fixing the rings. So you're being manipulated into caring about me.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, no, no, that's not what's happening. I think what I wrote down was, I haven't done this for you, but I want to share it with you. Which, I mean, is really where Harry's coming from. He's like, this wasn't about you, really. Like, this was about me reclaiming, like, my story and, like, my life and sort of accepting that, like, I wasn't meant to die. Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm allowed to live. I want to share that life with you. And that's the thing that, like, allows them to be together. Yeah. Is Harry really, like, allowing himself to be happy, which he has not done up to this point. And then I wrote at the very end, this is a proposal fic, you bastard.
Yeah, a little sneaky proposal at the end, perhaps?
Sneaky proposal at the end. So, there is an epilogue. I think chapter 4 is an epilogue. And which I wrote, this is honestly what the epilogue of the real books could never be, only wishes it could be, etc. Where, they have their life together and they're doing their thing and blah, blah, blah. And it ends with Harry proposing to Draco with the rings, which is very sweet. And they get together and he's like, will you be my husband? I want to do this whatever ceremony it is with you and build a house with you. Yeah. I don't know if any of that made sense, y'all. This is going to be one of those episodes where we're just like really getting back into it and it's fine. But, we're at minute 33 and...
We're at 33 minutes?
Yep.
Great. No pressure for me to like. I guess I'll just blaze on through what you sent me.
We have not only the other fic, but also the rec to get through. And I was the one that was so insistent.
Oh, I forgot. I thought that was the next episode. Oops. Woo! All right.
Cool. I really enjoyed this fic. Obviously, nice. I'm not great right now. I'm not stellar. But I wrote, my only complaint is the getting together bit went kind of fast. But, like, even then, not really.
Nice.
This was delightful. I enjoyed it thoroughly. The found family element of it was really strong because, first of all, this fic was so queer.
Yeah.
It was very queer. Like, from the get-go, like, I was like, oh, this person not only is an adult who understands what Syrah is, they are also a queer adult because they understand what it's like to actually develop like a found family and like your people and like build a life for yourself and navigate complicated relationships with others when things go wrong. So it was very queer in that way. And like Ginny and Luna are married in this, which was awesome. Yeah. I love that. And like there were a lot of queer characters and a lot of queer culture seeping its way in with like the bars that they would meet at and the things that they would do and the ways that they operate. I was like, this resonates very strongly as like authentically queer in a way that I understand. Not that there's any inauthentic way to be queer, but
sure.
This sort of like it wasn't sort of, you know how sometimes if people haven't experienced it, it's harder to like pinpoint it.
Yeah.
It had that energy
nice.
Of like, yeah, this person like has lived this life. Not to make assumptions, but that's what it felt like. So yeah, I loved it.
Yay!
Solid 4.5 out of 5.
Nice.
So good.
Starting off strong.
You want
to know what the best part is?
What?
I did not have to search for this because back in season 1 when he was trying to be a productive little noodle, he was just searching through like random archive of our own like tags and stuff, and whenever I found something that like had an interesting summary with a pairing I knew, I was like, I'll just throw it onto this doc, and then I would just label it like possibly used for this tag or something. And this, I was just like, I'm gonna check. Maybe there's something there. And I found this, and I was like, oh, let me read this. And I was like, yes, perfect, excellent,
perfect. You did it.
I did it. It came in handy finally. The document.
You did it. I'm very proud of you.
Thanks.
Good job, Past Alan Noodle.
Love that for Past Alan Noodle.
I'm sorry for what I've done to you in this episode. Do you want to talk about what I sent you?
Sure. Y'all ready for a speed run?
Yep. I'm sorry.
No, it's absolutely fine. Also, the one I sent you was much longer than what you sent me.
That's true. What did I send you? I forget.
So, a good segue. You sent me a fic entitled But We Can Try. It is by Hetrez, Hetrez.
Yep.
It is an archive of our own. It is an MCU Stucky
Aha!
fic.
Yep. Which one is it, though? I thought I read through 7, and then I picked one.
Well, maybe the summary will help.
Thank you.
Bucky said, "These are love letters, Rogers. You've been drawing me love letters."
Oh, yeah. I do remember now.
Yeah. This was so cute. So sweet. Mm-hmm. Made me really wish I had seen Winter Soldier to really get all of the nuance and all of the angst pre-built.
I keep forgetting that you haven't seen it. Have you seen The Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
No.
My eyes are closed, so I can't look at you.
Nope.
I hate you.
Was this written post?
No.
Okay, good.
It was not, but the reason I sent it to you is because now I'm obsessed.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Yeah, I was wondering, like...
Sebastian Stan.
Oh, love
Hi,
that.
friend.
Love that, man. Do you want to come on the podcast?
Please come on the podcast. I feel like that would be a level of chaos that we could not manage ourselves.
I would love that, though.
That'd
I'm
be
ready
so great.
for it.
It's very attractive.
So beautiful. Oh, my God. Okay.
Right.
So this fic, basically, it's Steve and Bucky living in Avengers Tower with the rest of the Avengers, minus Thor, who is back in Asgard, presumably.
Yep.
And it's I assume it's shortly after they have got Bucky back from the Winter Soldier like programming and whatnot, so he's like adapting to life and stuff. And Steve is being more attentive maybe than is usual, but in his head it's just because he wants to make sure that Bucky is integrating with the rest of the group, and like basically just keeps looking at him and like wondering, like basically being very, very glad that he's alive in here with him. And this culminates early on in the fic when Bucky is like, "Stop looking at me like that." And Steve says, "Like what?" And Bucky tells him, you keep looking at me with, like, if your heart is breaking every time. Like, I'm sorry I can't be him, you know? And then that caused some confusion for Alan. I was like, what?
Who? What?
And then I think I gathered through context clues and prior knowledge that it, like, so it's not... He has no memories of before being the Winter Soldier?
Oh, I didn't read it that way. I read it more like they had this particular relationship when they were young, right? And, like, they had been mythologized, and, like, there was this idea of, like, the Bucky that you lost. I can't be that guy. I can't be your, like, swashbuckling best friend from when we were young.
Okay.
Because I am a fundamentally different person now.
I see. So it's not logistics.
Right.
Great.
There's not a physically different human involved in this.
I was confused, and I was like, wow, how many Stucky fics have I read, and no one's bothered to tell me?
I know.
But good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Love to hear that.
I think that's what he meant.
Amazing.
To be fair, it's been a while since I've read this.
Is anyone shocked?
No.
Not me.
You shouldn't be.
So, yes, Bucky and Steve have this argument where I keep having to not say Stucky because it is hard.
It is. It's difficult.
Where Bucky is saying, you know, I'm sorry I can't be him. Basically, later on, they go to like a fight for something, and Bucky's arm is like dented or is like a little damaged, and he's like fixing it. And Steve comes over just to make sure that Bucky's all right, and he's like watching Bucky's arm, and Bucky gets self-conscious and says, you know, like, stop looking at my arm just because you don't like it or whatnot. Mm-hmm. Basically, we have all this internalized, like, Bucky thinking that Steve is really uncomfortable with Bucky how he is now and all of this stuff. And so Steve, to prove that he has no problem with Bucky's arm, decides to draw like a portrait of Bucky with his arm, like, while he was fixing his arm, and leaves it on the kitchen table and says, you know, I don't hate your arm. And then this becomes a bit of a new courting system, basically, where Steve is trying to get closer to Bucky, who he has noticed. So Steve has noticed that Bucky actually has had a less hard time than Steve himself in, like, integrating himself with the rest of the team. Mm-hmm. So, like, once Steve goes to talk to Sam, and so he shows up and realizes that, like, they're having a movie night and there's popcorn, and Steve asks, you know, does this happen often? And Sam says, yeah, we watch quite a few movies. Well, we'll invite you next time. And so this whole thing is Steve kind of realizing that he's been holding himself back from really allowing those bonds to form with other people. And now that Bucky is back wanting to form that bond with him and not be so alone anymore. And he's drawing constantly. Any little shot of Bucky, like them at Bucky fighting, Bucky cooking, Bucky
all Bucky all the time.
All Bucky all the time,
which is not dissimilar from my TikTok For You page at this moment in time.
I love that for you.
Yep, thank you. I'll be here all week.
And there are some that he doesn't give to Bucky because they're just a little too on the nose, if you will. Just like Bucky's sleeping, or Bucky.
Yep.
Once Bucky has a nightmare, and so Steve goes in there, and they both sleep shirtless, and then they fall asleep like touching shoulders, and so he draws that, but decides to put it in his bedside drawer and deal with that a different day.
He's like, you don't need to know.
Yep. And so
this happened.
Somewhere near the end of the fic, or like in the middle, Steve asks Bucky, where do you go off to every day? Like, you just disappear, and then in the evenings we hang out, but where are you going to? And Bucky's like, all right, put your shoes on and grab a coat. It's going to be cold. And so Bucky takes Steve around the city, around New York, just to different vendors, different food restaurants. And like, yeah, there was this really lovely part where he talks to this woman who sells the best tamales in Manhattan and speaks Spanish to her, which was great. It was actual proper grammar Spanish, and I was so grateful for it.
Yep.
And so, yeah, he goes around just like, and Steve gets to see firsthand how people love Bucky and how Bucky has made human connection with people in this century.
Mm-hmm.
And that really affects him a lot. And he starts to think about what he wants to do. And he talks to Sam, and Sam gives him a whole bunch of like alternatives, like get a therapy dog, or like get a new hobby, just different things to try and break out of that self-isolation that Steve has had himself in. And then one day, Bucky's cooking for him, and Steve asks him to spar with him, and Bucky's like, I don't know, and Steve really wants to. He's like, please, and Bucky's a little hesitant because he doesn't want to like go all out and like further distance himself from whatever view Steve has of him in his mind. But they end up sparring, and it's very hot for Steve. Steve is like all about it, and basically
Steve is into it.
He basically ends with a hard on, and Bucky on top of him. Bucky panics, runs out of there, which, fair. Goes
as is fan fiction tradition.
Yeah, exactly. Steve goes back to their apartment and basically confronts Bucky, and Bucky's like, why, like, let's not talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. We've tried this before when we were 13. They tried to give each other hand jobs, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just leave it there. And Bucky is grappling with the fact that now that he feels attraction towards Steve, he's like, it's because I'm different. It's because I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
And Steve is like, I want you the same way. It's fine. And then they make out. And then it's fine. It's really nice and sweet. And Steve is like, hang on, I have something to show you. And goes and gets the drawings and gives them to Bucky and is like, here you go. Just so you can know how fucking obsessed I've been over you.
He's like, I don't know if this is going to help or hurt, but it's going to come out sometime, so...
And then Bucky says the summary line, which is like, you've been writing me love letters through drawings, which is really cute and sweet. And that's the end of the fic.
You are a gift to us all, because that was a speed run.
Woo!
Yeah, well done.
Thank you. I had a great time. I thought
Good.
This was lovely, and I really appreciated the realization that you can keep yourself from forming bonds with people, or like being part of a family, because sometimes you feel like you are already really close to someone, but you're still afraid to like go the extra step and really bond with someone. And I related to that a lot from Steve's perspective.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really sweet, and I know I've said this before, but I love like Avengers fics when they're all living in the Avengers Towers and it's just a frat house. I love it.
We have been robbed of Avengers Tower as a thing that happened.
True.
Like, that should have happened in the MCU. Like, it should be a thing. But it hasn't. So fanfiction had to step up and do it.
Yeah.
And Avengers Towers fics are, like, that's definitely... I sent this to you now, and I've, like, gone back to that era of my life. But, like, Avengers Tower fics were, like, my jam before The Magicians. I read it all the time. Like, so that was definitely one that I bookmarked, like, a couple years ago and, like, kept.
I'm glad. I enjoyed that a lot. In fact, I want Disney to make an Avengers Tower series a la Teen Titans, the OG.
Teen Titans!
That'd be chill. I would love that. I'd watch that. He says, having not watched any TV shows. But
it hurts me that you haven't seen The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because I have so many feelings about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I'm so sorry.
And I can't talk to you about them because I'll end up spoiling the whole thing.
You can talk at me.
I can talk at you about them, but I can't talk with you about them. Alan.
Caitlin, help.
Caitlin. Yeah. I haven't watched and to be honest with you, I haven't watched a whole lot of new things in quarantine. Mm-hmm. That has not been my jam, which is not super helpful.
But that's fair.
With regards to this podcast. But that show was really, really fun.
Nice.
And I just live for all the Bucky angst.
Of course. And
the Bucky figuring out his life. And I think Bucky is a really good vehicle in general for the found family trope, because he has none. Like, much like Steve, he's also a man out of time. Mm-hmm. And so he has to form his own family in some way, and he's, they're very gay, so it worked out in the end.
I love that.
Yeah,
this was great. I highly recommend. I would give this a 3.5 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah, enjoy that. And Aaron's taking it very well.
I can't hide my face anymore. I don't know how to mask emotions anymore. And I'm usually behind a computer. Okay.
It is very weird to speak to you not through a computer screen.
Uh-huh.
I usually have my computer to hide behind.
Yep.
And now I have nothing.
Yep. That, and I fed you.
You did feed me.
So
thanks.
You should round up all of your answers accordingly if you would like to continue to be fed.
All right, yeah. I'll give it like a 3.8. You're right.
Thank you.
You're right.
That's better. I appreciate you.
I'm rusty on the grading scale, you know?
Those are called brownie points. And they're for me only.
Amazing.
Unless you bring brownies next time, in which case you also get brownie points. Very fun.
Very fun.
Thank God you did that so fast, because we have a third fic to talk about, and this one's not going to be
What?
Not gonna be short.
There's a third fic?
Woo! So, as mentioned in the top of this episode, we are going to try to regularly incorporate recommendations from you, our listeners, into these reviews. Whether or not this is a thing that is successful is yet to be determined, but we're going to start off the season with a fan rec.
Yeah.
It's also a fan rec from someone we know and love, and you all probably know and love, because if you listen to this podcast, you probably listen to their podcast, or know their fan art, or generally interact with them on Twitter because they are a delightful person, and that would be Evelyn Rogers.
Yes.
What a gift to us all. Hi, Evelyn. We are finally reading one of your many recommendations.
We're doing it. It's happening.
If you, listeners, would like to submit a recommendation for us to read, there is a Google form that you can use to send links and tag information. You can choose to include your name or not. It really is up to you. If you do include your name, please include your pronouns so we get them right. And then, you can send us recommendations of fics to read, and maybe your choice will be included on an episode of the fic list.
Ooh.
It can be a fic you wrote. It can be a fic you love. It can be whatever you want. People have sent fics they write. It's cool. It's all good.
We're all for it.
So, what is the fic, Elan?
The fic is a fic. It is called Pretty Good Year. It is by HTH on Archive of Our Own.
I know you listen to this podcast, so I'm sorry. We're not making fun of you. We're just
dumb.
I know. We're just really punchy.
It is the Magician's fic, because it wouldn't be a fic list episode without a Magician's fic somewhere.
It has been 0 episodes since a Magician's fic.
Let's go ahead and change the sign here at the studio.
Yep. I'm making Alan do all the work on this one.
All right, great. Not just because she had read it previously and didn't reread it for this podcast, but Alan had to reread it or read it for the first time.
Yep. So I did the thing where I was like, I know this story, and I didn't reread it, and I didn't take notes. And now I'm looking at it, I'm like, do I remember? I do. I remember. I do. Not enough to... Yep, Alan, you can do it.
And then Alan was like, you know what? I'm going to be a good noodle. I'm going to write little chapters, like chapter points after every chapter, just to know what happened. And then if you look at my note, it starts off really well, and then somewhere around chapter 10, it just goes insane. Oh. But also, this fic is 150,000 words. Let me reiterate, that is 150,000 words.
I read it as a work in progress.
Oh, my lord.
It's also part of a universe. There's more.
Oh, I saw. I was aware. I was like, dear Lord in heaven, save me.
Yes. When people get really down on fanfiction, I get really mad because I'm like, okay, I understand that reading a book is a different experience from reading fanfiction. They have different goals, different structures. There's different things at play here. But 150,000 words is a book.
Yes!
I read a fucking book.
That is a book!
Yep.
And you know what the worst part is? I can't put it on my Goodreads.
Yep. So, like, that's the thing, is, like, really the disparagement of fanfiction as, like, not a valid literary form or whatever is such bullshit. Because,
absolutely.
Like, people write these incredible things, and this is a full book that someone wrote, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So.
And is, like, way better developed than some other books I've read, you know? So, I agree with those points. Anyway. So, here goes Alan attempting his second speed run of the day. Everyone stand back. The crowd waits in anticipation.
Alan goes, mew.
All right. Pretty Good Year by Hith. I'm sorry. Write in, let us know.
Please actually correct us on Twitter or something.
And the summary reads, what's it gonna take till my baby's all right? Well, still, pretty good year. Wonderful. We love that for us.
We love a short, sweet, and to the point summary because we don't have time.
And really, we didn't. Okay. Starting off strong with chapter 1. So basically, Elliot works as a bartender in Indiana. It's no magic, so it's a fully alternate universe. And him and Margot...
My brain just broke because I was remembering Harry Potter, no magic. Oh, God. Yep, no magic. Yep. It's fine. We're good.
There's no magic. They're just human beings. Elliot lives with Margot in a condo in Indiana, which they have moved to after living in LA. And Elliot is like a huge theater nerd, which I loved as a huge theater nerd myself. And went to LA to do the whole, do the actor thing, and basically spiraled out of control with like... drug abuse, substance, was in an abusive relationship, and finally the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back there was that Margot was deep into addiction and had to go to rehab, and Elliot knew that if they stayed in LA it was just not going to stick, and so he moved to be with Margot in Indiana. But Elliot is working as a bartender nights and is very bored, basically, is the gist of it. Him and Margot see a moving truck to their building, and the condo across the hall from theirs is going to be occupied for the first time. They know that it's this blonde girl, who we later find out is Alice, who owns the condo. But who moves in but Quentin Coldwater?
Yay!
Who was, up until just recently, engaged to Alice and now is not.
Oh dear.
And it just did not work out. But now he is...
less yay.
Less yay. He is renting it from Alice, though, because he's doing his master's? PhD. He's doing his PhD in Purdue.
Yep.
At Purdue. Excuse me. In philosophy.
In Purdue chicken.
Yep, exactly. So then Elliot sees Quentin and is like, I could bang him.
You're not wrong.
In the first chapter, Elliot does this test to figure out if Quentin would be at all interested, where he says, give me your phone. And Quentin immediately slaps that bitch on Elliot's hand, like, here you go.
Yeet.
Yup. And Elliot is like, great. If he had been straight, he would have been like, what? Why? If he was curious, he would have been like, okay. But Elliot is like, well, Quentin basically just slammed this phone on my hand, so I know he wants the D.
As per usual with Quentin, dives in head first, mouth open.
True. We fast forward a week. Quentin and Elliot, boom, get it on. It's fraudage. They love it. Elliot.
Oh my God.
End of the chapter, Elliot is like, I don't want to catch feelings for this small bean, but I think I might, but I'm scared of that, so I'm just going to ignore it. Chapter 2.
I am losing my mind. This is insane. Okay, this is too much. You're too much.
Chapter 2, Elliot and Quentin spend a good majority of it thinking that they're not good for each other.
Aren't there like 13 chapters in this?
There's 14.
There's 14.
Margot gets Quentin wine drunk. Quentin and Elliot sleep together more. End of the chapter, we find out Quentin has a child, a little Ted Coldwater, who is 5 years old. Teddy. They call him Ted.
There's so many Teds in this episode.
It's all Ted.
An abundance of Teds.
That's the title.
Yep.
Abundance of Ted. So Quentin has a child named Ted after his father, who died from cancer. That's kind of canon. And so he moved to Indiana instead of going to Yale for his PhD to be closer to his son, who is living with his maternal grandmother because the mom committed suicide and Quentin is too unstable, quote unquote, according to the government, to take custody of his child. Mm-hmm. That's chapter 2. Chapter 3.
We should say that the mother of Ted is Ariel.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I forgot her name.
Ariel.
Well, thank you.
Not Ariel. Which is what was said in a previous episode, and Evelyn did private tweet me and was like, why didn't you correct Alan? And I was like, I just let him go.
Evelyn, I try so hard. Do you not see how hard I try? Oh, man.
So I've corrected the wrong now. Thank you. You're welcome.
Chapter 3. Quentin starts out depressed and withdraws for a bit. Elliot is nervous about that. Quentin asks him on a date, and finally they go on that date despite it having been postponed twice because of depression. They go adopt Fester the cat.
I forgot about Fester.
Yeah, Fester the cat.
Oh, Fester.
Very ugly, very cute.
Like me?
No. They have a first kind of serious, it's like an argument-ish where Quentin is telling Elliot, I'm not looking for anyone to try to fix me. Like, he gets very, like, protective when, people are like, yo, you should do this or you should do that. And Quentin is like, I don't need anyone to try and fix me because all it's going to end up in is that person getting tired and then they're not going to want to deal with me anymore, so I don't need it. Elliot sings to him. Love it. Chapter 4.
Oh my god.
Elliot decides to quit smoking because of Quentin, which is really sweet, and he gives him as like a symbol. Like, he just decides off the cuff when Quentin asks, "Oh, are you smoking?" And Elliot is like, "I was thinking of quitting anyway. Here you go," and throws his cigarette case, which is like gold plated and has his initials, which is really sweet. Margot is not happy because she thinks that Elliot is changing himself for Quentin, which he is.
Yep. Margot, as usual, is not wrong.
Yep. They go, Margot and Elliot have pizza at Quentin's apartment with Quentin and his son Ted. Margot and Quentin bond over fillery, and it's like a really sweet thing, and Margot is in love with Ted. And then at the end of the night, there's almost a threesome between Margot, Elliot, and Quentin, but then Elliot stops it, and he and Margot have an argument. But the chapter ends with them making up, so it's all okay. Chapter 5.
I would pay good money to just have you recap everything in this style forever and ever.
Oh boy.
Amen.
Chapter 5. Ted's grandma dies. We're sad. Quentin asks Elliot to come to the funeral, and Margot tags along to be there for Ted. Elle continues to be afraid of fucking things up. Margot decides that she wants to foster Ted. I
love Margot.
Yeah, and proposes to Elliot so that they, as a married couple, have a better shot of actually being able to foster Ted. And Elliot is like, yeah, I mean, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, cool.
Yep. Elliot tells Quentin. Quentin says he's fine with it. Don't know what that means, but it was all capitalized, so I'm telling you now. Elliot is basically convincing himself the whole time that he's okay with it and with all the pressures that it is coming on, but it's clear he's not.
Yeah. He's like, it's fine. It's not fine.
Yep. Oh, Elliot calls up his stepmother to get his mom's ring from a safety deposit box that his dad told him he could have. And she's like, I don't know that I can give it to you, but maybe if you talk to your father, I know that he feels really bad about all the fucking trauma and abuse. Yeah. And Elliot says, no, fuck that. No, thank you. Thanks anyway. Goodbye. Him and Margot get married, and it's like a really like city hall, and they go get drunk at a bar kind of thing, which is really awesome. Chapter 7, hangover morning, which I loved, is a tradition that Margot and Elliot have every morning when they would wake up hungover. They'd get up, they would make mimosas, and then they would they'd watch a movie, and then and it's peanut butter bacon sandwiches.
Oh.
Yep.
I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. Not my favorite choice. 8th.
They watch The Greatest Showman, which is appropriate because Elliot still loves performing but is not allowing himself that opportunity. Ted moves in finally, And then the whole chapter is kind of Elliot feeling like an imposter because he doesn't, like, obviously he feels underqualified for everything, but he's trucking along anyway. For Elliot's birthday, Quentin buys him a piano because he wants Elliot to have some music in his life, which is really nice.
Oh no.
Oh my god. And then Elliot's dad shows up at Margot's work and basically, like, harasses her for the ring. He's very drunk.
Yeah.
And Elliot goes to, like, between them, and the cops are there, and his dad pushes Elliot, and just the physical contact of it sends Elliot into a panic attack. And Margot says, you need to go to therapy. That the caseworker for Ted has a partner who's Penny, who is a therapist, and the caseworker basically gave them Penny's card and said, I think you'd like my partner. He's no bullshit, which makes sense.
Yep. That is Penny.
Chapter 8. Halloween. Elliot makes all of them dress up as the Addams Family. He is Wednesday, because of course.
Because duh.
Yep. The vice principal at the school hits on Elliot and then offers him part-time work as a costumer at a theater, which, creepy, but okay. Elliot goes to therapy and realizes, there might be something here. Quentin retreats to himself because it's November and, seasonal depression, and he's overwhelmed. Oh, and he's trying to, like, distance himself from the happy family dynamic because he doesn't want to be a burden and all that stuff, which is, unfortunate, but
a very Quentin thing to do.
Margot's sleeping with a coworker.
Good for her.
Good for her. We love that for her. Elliot and Quentin spend Thanksgiving alone, and things are okay. They kind of talk out. Because it's a whole thing of, like, Quentin has warned Elliot, and Elliot's trying to be really cognizant of that fact and not, like, be all up in Quentin's space, but he is scared and wants to see him and all of this stuff. So it's nuanced, but after Thanksgiving, they're okay, everyone.
They're trying to navigate a very delicate balance.
Exactly. Chapter 9. Elliot wants to do Christmas, but feels like an imposter because his awful childhood never afforded him a happy Christmas.
Woof.
Quentin gives him tickets to Hadestown and a trip to New York.
Yep.
We love that. Ted is sad.
Remember trips.
True. Oh, man.
Remember New York?
Yeah, I sure do. I'm going in September. I'm very excited.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Ted is sad and scared about being left behind again. Elliot handles it like an adult. At the Airbnb, Quentin reveals that he's having trouble with holding an erection because of his higher dose of antidepressants. Elliot realizes that he really never wants to lose Quentin, and Quentin basically says the same thing. So now at this point, Quentin, I think, has said, I love you. And Elliot has not, but has thought it very strongly. And he's like, it's a high point of contention with Elliot and himself, where he wants to desperately verbalize the things that he's feeling to the people that he cares about, but he can't because he's afraid of losing them. He's afraid that if he points out how happy he is, the universe is going to be like, oh shit, you're right, sorry, let me just take that back from you.
You're not allowed to be happy.
Exactly.
What? Trauma, man. Why is this episode so much trauma?
Isn't that all fan fiction is?
That's true. That's true.
Just processing trauma in different ways. Chapter 10, New York trip. They go to a park where Quentin would used to go walk alone that would make him feel like he was in Fillory, and it's really sweet. And he talks about how he invited his mom, who lives, like, just a train ride away, to come into the city and see him, and his mom was like, no. And you find out that the last time that Quentin was institutionalized, his mom didn't go see him, just sent a card. And so this is, like, a real, like, awful thing because...
Fuck Quentin's mom. And
Elliot is frustrated not being able to, like, verbalize that how strongly he feels about Quentin. They meet Julia. She's a little rude, but they get over it, is what I wrote.
That sounds right. I don't recall, but it sounds correct.
Because basically Julia meets Elliot and asks Quentin, so, what's the deal? And Quentin has to be like, are you honestly asking, like, you don't think I could just land him because of all of my issues? And Julia basically says, I don't want to be a bitch about it, but yeah, well, how did you land him? Which is, like, really rude and, like, really inappropriate. Rude. Just because it's true doesn't mean you have to point it out, ho?
Yeah. Again, Julia, complicated.
Yeah. They get over it, fast friends. They have dinner with James, Alice, and Dallas, and that's fine. And then they have like the perfect day where like they go and like do all the shopping, and they go to Rockefeller Center, and they go watch Hadestown, and then Elliot is crying because it's like he always dreamed about going to New York with a partner when he was a little boy, and he never got that experience, and now he did, and it's with Quentin, who he fucking loves. Mm-hmm. And Quentin, and they get back to the Airbnb, and Quentin is just frustrated about not being able to like do sexy time. Mm-hmm. And Elliot has to be like, this was the best day of my life, please.
Elliot was like, I don't need to do sexy times with our penises. We did sexy times with our hearts.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I just said that out loud.
That's going to be the subtitle.
No!
That's going to be the promo.
Oh, no!
Chapter 11. They back. Christmas stuff gets done. Elliot goes back to work at the bar. Quentin sends a dick pic and tops for the first time. Congratulations, Quentin.
Oh my god.
Ooh, Elliot says, I love you. And then promptly panics.
Yep, that sounds right too.
They go to A Christmas Carol, which is the show that the community theater that Elliot is volunteering / working at.
We love A Christmas Carol.
Is working on, and it's really sweet.
Kermit is the main character.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Quentin and Margot asked to take Ted to a Unitarian church for service, and Elliot is like, absolutely fucking not. Like,
because religious trauma.
Religious trauma, exactly. And Margot's like, hey, his trauma is not your trauma. Fuck you.
Yeah. And
so they go, and Elliot says, well, fine, take him. I'm not going. And then it's Christmas Eve it's like Christmas Eve at midnight, so it's Christmas now. And Quentin and Elliot are the last people left out in the living room, and they're just kind of hidden behind the tree and on a window seat and just like admiring the Christmas tree. And Quentin asks Elliot if, he can keep taking Ted to church because he thinks that it's like a really good social type thing, and like it'd be nice to give him like a foundation of some sort. And that leads into Elliot talking about this really traumatic experience he had where he was always a problem child after his mom passed away and his dad was abusive. And so they sent him away to like a reform school or reform house of sorts where a bunch of boys, and it was like led by a church, and it was awful. They were not feeding them correctly. What was the thing? The whole catalyst was that they would make the boys like stand up and then say something like say the sin or something that they've been holding in their heart, or like that they've been worried about. Their trauma basically, and everyone else had to like yell prayers at the person just to like try and heal them, kind of thing. And Elliot refused to do that. Basically, it ends with Elliot being locked in the like basement that only has a light bulb at the top, and it's like cold, and there's nothing down there. He's locked in the basement for 3 days with no food, no water, and Elliot feels that a part of him died. Like basically, like he lost his soul, and then he basically disassociated from that trauma, from that pain, and moved on. And so he has this pride about knowing how to survive, basically, disassociate from all the trauma and all the bad stuff in his life. And so he admits to Quentin, I feel like if there are souls, mine died that day, and like there's a part missing of me. And Quentin has to be like, no, you haven't. And Elliot loses it, and it's like crying and sobbing, and it's like really powerful, and it's a good step in the right direction for Elliot. Chapter 12.
It got dark.
It's
but we are going to keep on trucking.
Elliot is talking to his therapist, is talking to Penny, and basically says that I don't think I'm a good parent or I'm a good partner. Like, I don't know what that is, what that looks like. And Penny is like, well, what does a good partner / parent look like to you? And Elliot says, Gomez Addams. And basically
Which is correct.
Exactly. And basically tricks Elliot into realizing they are things you can work towards. Like, those are things that you already have. You just have to work on them a little more. And so Elliot gets really drunk and realizes that he's using drinking as a crutch, as a coping mechanism. So he takes up a bunch of hobbies. He's in a gay bowling league with men that are way older than him. He is costuming fully at the place. I think there's a book club. There's carpool. He's really into mommy blogs. He's doing it.
He's doing the thing.
Oh, Quentin, Margot, and Ted surprise him with like a studio, so like a little sewing room, so he can do his stuff and have his own space at Quentin's apartment. Quentin has a really rough February, and so Elliot is like really scared of leaving him by himself and makes him go to all the activities with him. The vice principal of the school, who also runs the community theater, tells Elliot that he should audition for fiddler because they're going to do it in the summer, and he thinks that he'd be really good at it. And Elliot is kind of having this like moment where he wants to but doesn't because he's already, in his mind, he has closed that chapter in his life and doesn't want to go back to it. And then Quentin continues to have a rough patch, but spring comes and they have the first like really nice day of spring, and Quentin has a good day, and apologizes to Elliot and says, you work so hard, and I know it can't be easy, what you do for our family, because Elliot is basically the moving, like, he is the driving force behind the family. He has everything scheduled. He's the one who goes, picks up Ted, and like it's an intricate game that Elliot is the controller of. And Elliot realizes that while everything he does for his family is hard, it also brings him pleasure because he loves them, which is very sweet. Chapter 13. Ted gets into an argument with some boys at school because they call his long hair gay, and then Ted has to be like, but it's just like my dad's hair. And they're like, well, then your dad's gay. Which then Elliot has to like have a conversation about, and basically is like, kids are assholes. Don't pay attention to them, which is basically fair. And Margot's ready to like raise the alarm and like, we're gonna go talk to everyone. We're gonna beat up some fucking 6-year-olds. Yep. So that was a really interesting moment where Elliot is like, he has to choose to like, we have to teach him how to choose his battles wisely. Right. And Margot kind of agrees, but also is like, don't push your trauma on him. Don't push your like weird dissociating mechanism, your coping mechanisms on him. Which was really fascinating. Quentin goes into withdrawal because he decided to quit his antidepressants because in his mind, they're not helping him. And he just quit cold turkey. Yep. So he dropped out of the face of the planet, and 2 of his coworkers come to Elliot's door and say, hey, have you seen him? We haven't heard from him in like a day or 2. Mm-hmm. Elliot panics, goes across the hall, finds him in withdrawal. They go to the university like medical center. They talk to a doctor, and the doctor's like, you're an idiot. Don't do that. That's bad. Yep. So they get his prescription filled, and Quentin is really frustrated and doesn't want Elliot to help because of the aforementioned, like, I don't want to lose you type thing. But Elliot is like, you're a stupid asshole. Please let me be here for you. And so it all culminates in a conversation or an argument where Quentin admits that he has been in a really dark place, and what's really fucking him up is that he has everything he could ever want. His son is there. He has a family that he loves. He has a man that he loves, and he's still not happy. Like, he still feels the way he does because, depression, and admits to Elliot that he wants to, he has suicidal ideation. And Elliot's very calm, and it's like, that's fine. Packs him a bag and says, get in the car. We're going to go to, like, a treatment center, because obviously he was already looking him up just to be ready. Mm-hmm. And so he goes and drops him off there, and is very sad about it, but it's like hopeful that Quentin's going to get like the help he needs. Then him and Margot have sex. Yep. Which, fair. And Margot has to go get a plan B because she hadn't gotten a new IUD, basically, because she and Elliot had not had sex in forever. Mm-hmm. And Elliot is like, well, if you wanted to have kids, we can just see if this takes. And Margot's like, you can't handle a baby. No. Baby, no. That's not what we're doing. Yup. Chapter 14, final chapter. Fucking time jump, I guess, is what I wrote. Mm-hmm. We're at Julia and James's wedding in June. Last I knew we were in March, but okay. March
to June is not that big of a jump.
They left Quentin at a fucking, like, mental rehabilitation center, and then they just expect me to immediately be okay with we're at a wedding now? Okay. Okay. Margot offers to divorce Elle so that he can have, like, the quote-unquote the real thing with Quentin, and Elliot is like, if you're trying to get rid of me, you're going to have to try harder than that. Quentin is really nervous because he has to make a best man toast, but nails it. Alice comes up and talks to Elliot about how hard it was to be with Quentin and all this stuff, and basically is like, she's trying to impart onto Elliot, I did love him, but it just got hard and all of that stuff. And Elliot is like,
that's who Quentin is.
Yeah. But Alice does mention that there was one therapist that Quentin did vibe with in New York, but that he stopped seeing because Alice hated her. Mm. And so, but she offers this as like a, I hope it helps, some. And later on, after the whole celebration and the parties, Elliot and Quentin are at a boardwalk and they're talking about it. And Elliot asks, well, why did you like this therapist, and why'd you stop seeing her? And Quentin says, well, I liked it because the way that she did things was different. She, like, took him on, like, quests in his head, and, like, she basically used fillery as a way to, like, process the trauma or, like, the feelings that he was having. And Quentin felt that it was silly, and he knew that it was, like, very, like, new age healing type thing. But Elliot is like, that's bullshit. If it's what helped you the most, then that's what we're going to do. We're going to find something like that for you. And then they slow dance on the boardwalk, and Elliot sings like a little bit of Taylor Swift's Mine. And and that's the end of it. Elliot lives in the moment and realizes that that's good enough for him, you know, because the whole fic is him being terrified of losing everything, and so the end is him saying, you know, I could, yes, but it does me no good to dwell on that. I'm just going to enjoy my moment. And that was a pretty good year.
Holy shit. Good job, Alan.
Well, not quite. I lost steam there at the end, but...
Good night, everybody.
It was 150,000 words.
It was 150,000 words. You did great.
Thanks.
So, do you want to talk about how you feel about this fic now, or do you want to take a break and I will talk about how I feel about this fic?
I'll go into it just because I'm already here.
Great.
And I remember most of it.
Perfect.
I will say I had a hard time reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And that has nothing to do with the way it was written or with the characters or the story itself. I've been having a lot of conversations with my therapist about what it means to like have like accessibility versus availability,
mm-hmm.
and like not having the space for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I had the space for it. I read it over basically like 8 or 9 days, not continuously, because I was like, I can do 2 chapters today, and then the trauma got too much, and I was like, that's enough for today.
Yep.
Because that's the thing is. It is incredibly well written. I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very well written. The characterizations are really good. And it's all told through the perspective of Elliot, who is a character who has a lot of trauma and a lot of, stuff that he's dealing with. And I don't know that I had the mental space to also make room for Elliot's in my life. But I had a deadline, and so I persevered. To me, it felt like sometimes it was too much. Like, and not in the like, oh, I think that it was like too much trauma. But I think because it's written so well, but it's also very lengthy. Yeah. I think that some parts could have been trimmed, kind of streamline the process. But it was an interesting mix of like slice of life and like a character study, because that's basically what you were reading. And if that was the goal, fucking kudos, because that was intense.
Yeah.
And the other kind of thing that I was not able to wrap my head around, and it's something that I know is like a me thing, and I need to talk to my therapist about it, because I was like, I don't know, is kind of the weird relationship that he has with Margot. I think that my brain just doesn't think in like a polyamory type way, and that's really this has been the fic that most went for that angle of Elliot and Margot's relationship, because Elliot mentions that he's had 3 great loves in his life, and one was a really abusive asshole that he had to escape from. One was Margot, and then that didn't end well because he was so into her and she was not as into him, which was unfortunate, but they made it through. And then the third one is Quentin and all of that stuff. And so it was just like a new thing that I had to wrap my head around, and I was like, again, when I was already unlimited like mental space, it was a challenge for me. But that being said, I thought that it obviously hit all of the marks for found family. I could see it. I enjoyed it. I am excited to read stuff that does not have a child named Ted.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear you talk about this fanfiction, because I read it as a work in progress, as I did with many magicians' fanfictions.
Of course.
And I remember talking to Caitlin about this fic because it was such a unique experience of reading. Like, it was so different from other stylistic elements that, fanfiction generally sort of has like a certain sort of like directness in tone, and like you sometimes end up following stylistically in the footsteps of the original, but in this case, like, a lot of magicians fanfic was pretty straightforward, like, but this is very stylized, and it was stylized in such a way that it like was very, very unique. Like, I remember saying I've never read a fan fiction like this before, and it's really good, but it is like I think I benefited from reading it as a work in progress, because I would sit with a chapter and like process the chapter, and then come to the next one when it was ready. So I had time to like not have to just like consume it all in one go.
That makes sense.
I think it probably would be kind of difficult to like binge read this. Because I mean, it's also dealing with like, we joke around and like we got through that mostly because Alan was like speedrunning and it was funny, but like this is not a funny fic.
No.
By any stretch. Like it takes trauma and it takes, you know, mental illness very seriously, and it's a really tough pill to swallow, for lack of a better sort of colloquialism.
Oh, yeah.
Where like there are times where it's like it's hard and there's no getting around it. There's only through. And so the experience of reading this fic really mirrors some of that sort of like those moments in life where you're just like, I'm stuck with this thing in front of me that feels impossible and it feels insurmountable, and like life can be hard, and you sort of feel that with Elliot, you feel it with Quentin, like this frustration of coming back to a thing that you thought you handled, and like, you know, the reality of like Quentin dealing with the pills, like having side effects that he doesn't like, and like, yeah, they're good, but they also are bad, and like having to go back into the hospital and like being frustrated with that. Like it doesn't end on like this beautiful ride into the sunset where they like get married and have this grand old time. It's more complicated than that, and that I think there's beauty in that too. But yeah, it's hard to read it all at once.
I wish you'd gone first.
I know. Well, I got to sort of loop us back around, which is nice.
That's true.
So, I mean, I really love this fic, and I'm glad that Evelyn recommended it because I think it's a good one to talk about. I think this episode is now at like an hour and a half, which... Yeah,
but I mean,
that tracks.
That tracks for 3 fics.
Yeah, so...
Especially when one is 150,000 words.
Yep, and it's good. And yeah, I really enjoy this fic. And I think when you're thinking about found family and like, I think one of the things that I have said, or I don't know where I picked it up, somebody must have said it to me in my life or something, or I thought of it and it's true, but family is the hardest thing you'll ever do. And I think about that not just in the sense of like we inherit a family, right? Like we don't really pick what family we're born into, and that's hard.
Right.
But also the family you build it can be difficult.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it not worth it, but it can be really, really hard to build a family. And what that family looks like for everybody is different. And I love that this element of found family really celebrates a profoundly unconventional family structure. They literally, like, Margot and Elliot get married because it makes her a more viable foster mom for Ted. She's not interested in marrying Elliot. Like, that's not the deal. They love each other profoundly and deeply in the way that they do, but like, they aren't husband and wife in the sense of like, you know, happy family, like a picket fence and 2.5 kids and a dog. Like, that's not what it is. And so I think that element of the found family trope is really like, there's this sort of like the friendship side of found family where it's like your family is your friends, but then there's the really like ugly, like gritty building a life with someone found element of this found family trope thing that is fascinating. And I love that this fic isn't afraid to get ugly.
Yup.
I love that.
That is accurate. I think those were all incredibly good points, and I agree.
I had a lot of time to sit and like process while you were talking. So any element of like success in what I just said comes from the fact that I was sitting here being like, yep, and here's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad you spoke.
This is a podcast.
Because it helps me better process things, I think, or look at it from a different way. Because I did not enjoy the fic. Yeah. I did not enjoy my experience with it because I think I'm at a point where it was hard for me, and I think also part of that is just where I am in my mental journey with like my therapist and all of that stuff. Yeah. But it's really well written, and it is incredibly valuable and offers a lot of really great facets to the fanfic world of fandom. It just probably is not for me.
Yeah. Or it wasn't for you right now.
Or not for me right now.
I think I would also have a hard time reading this now. Because I am also not in my best mental health state ever. And I think that's something that can be acknowledged, even if I don't really want to talk about why. Sure. But if I were coming at this now, I think I would have a much harder time like dealing with it in a much a similar way, because it is a lot.
Yeah.
I was reading at a time where I had space for that, and like processing that kind of thing was more like I had the bandwidth for it.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think I read this more closer to all of the season 4 stuff when I was like real deep in the feelings on that one. And like I'm kind of trying to intentionally set that aside and like really step away from like looping back on that.
Yeah, that's a good point to make, because I think that the fic is really good at like pointing out the trauma and like, but also processing it at like almost in real time. So it would make sense that if it happened right after. There's a very aggressive bird.
The birds. We have the windows open for ventilation purposes, and we are going to leave them open for ventilation purposes. But if you hear burbs, that's why.
Episode 1 of season 3 of the Fic List featuring the birds.
And an abundance of Teds.
Yeah. And so I think that it makes sense that when you were reading it, it offered to process more of your feelings and what you were going through.
Yeah. But also going back to it would not be the most beneficial thing for me right now. So I love this fic. It's a lot. It's a lot to chew on.
But it was a good fic.
Oh, it's good. Oh, man. Damn, it's good.
That ending, Yay! Do we rate fan Rex? I don't remember. We've done one.
I think last time we decided that we would both give it a rating and average it out, because the other option is to agree on a rating, and that's never going to happen. True. So, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I can go first, sure.
Okay.
I would give it a 4.3 out of 5.
I was going to give it a 4.5, so 4.4.
4.4?
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that.
That feels good to me.
Yay.
Success.
Delight.
Love.
Wonder. Pride.
Oh no. Damn, we really failed.
That could have been really cool, and it wasn't. Yay. So now what?
Well, now that's the end of the episode, Aaron.
It might be the end of the season. We'll see if we get through another episode of this.
I'm sure we will. Where can people find us or interact with us, Aaron?
That's a really good question that I don't fully know the answer to right now. So we are on Twitter. Twitter is, as per usual, the way to get in touch with me, Aaron, the person.
Correct.
The other thing to check out is our Tumblr.
Yes.
Run by Caitlin.
I love you, Caitlin.
Caitlin continues to run our Tumblr better than I could ever run anything in my entire life.
It is so funny. I reblog everything, basically.
Yep. Everything that comes along, I'm like, oh my god, this is so great. This is so great. I have nothing to do with it. I can take no credit. Like, literally, Caitlin just sets it up, and it's awesome. So follow the Tumblr, not because you love me or Alan, but because you appreciate Caitlin's genius.
Yay, Caitlin.
Yep. Also super great. We have an Instagram. Will I use it? Time will tell. We have a TikTok. Will I use it? Time will tell. We don't follow us on Facebook. Just don't.
Pretend you didn't see that.
we are talking about opening up a Ko-Fi.
Yeah.
And Ko-Fi, whatever it is. So the thought,
Coffee.
I don't know. The thought being, so we talked about monetization and how complicated an issue that is when you're talking about fan fiction, because, this is a podcast about fan works, and those are offered for free in the community, but it also costs money to host a podcast and do things, not crazy amounts of money, not super lot, but enough that it was worth us saying, okay, if people enjoy what we do and feel so led to send us $2 to offset the cost of, SoundCloud hosting, or, if we, I don't know, if we have to pay for Zoom or something, there's nothing wrong with that. So we are opening up a Ko-Fi. If you would like to send us $1 or $2 in order to offset the costs of running this podcast, we would appreciate it.
Yeah.
So you can find us on Ko-Fi. I'm sure you can find us elsewhere, but frankly, I don't know where that's going to be yet. So stay tuned. If you would like to submit a fan rec, the Google Doc is pinned on Twitter.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yep. The Google form is pinned on Twitter. And then you can also read along with us on a separate Google Doc, which is our master rec list, which has all of the links to not only this season's fics, but season 2 and season 1's fics that we talked about. All sorts of stuff with all of the tags and the author and blah, blah, blah. So if you want to go back and read through everything that we've read in the entire history of this podcast, you can.
Yeah. please make sure that you're following us on Spotify or subscribed on Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is you're listening to.
Are we on is Amazon Podcast a thing?
I don't know. I
put us down for it months ago and then forgot.
We might be on Amazon If you're listening from Amazon
Someone
Podcast,
tell us.
Please tell us. Please rate, review. We just like to cast as wide a net as possible to make sure that other people get to, find their family with us.
We're still hoping to get Hale Appleman on this podcast. If Hale Appleman, if you're listening to this episode,
Hale Appleman, please.
Bless, first of all. Second of all, please email us at theficlist@gmail.com and we'll just work around your schedule, okay?
Yeah.
Sebastian Stan, if you would like to, I know you're on TikTok. We know you're on TikTok. If you would like to talk about fan fiction, please let us know. We would like to talk to you about Bucky.
Yes, please.
And, theficlist@gmail.com. Send us an email.
Yeah. But until then, we're gonna have some other guests on this season. This our first season with guests.
Secrets. People don't know about this.
So make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss out when those guests come on.
Who are they? We won't tell. There are going to be at least 2, 3?
3, I think.
At least 3 confirmed guests this season.
Yeah.
And hoping for a couple more. Is it 3? Might be 4.
I think it's 4?
Oh, maybe 4 now.
Yeah.
It's at least 3. Maybe
As you can
4.
see, we're
5 is right out.
We're doing well.
Yeah, we're on top of our shit today. There will be guests this season. It will be fun. Listen to the Fic List.
Stay
everybody.
tuned. Yeah.
Thank you for listening, and we love you very much.
Happy Pride!
Happy Pride! Oh yeah, this is the Pride episode.
Go celebrate it with your fan family.
Honestly, though, Happy Pride, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay.